Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Me, and today I will be reading Chapter 49 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Suck. Chapter 49 is titled The Devil Doc Conceived. I reported to Field Medical Service School, FMSS, about a week and a half early, before the start date after my visit with Mom and Benevolence back in Long Beach. I hoped Shinshin was doing well at Buds. That's what I often thought about, even when I was in the comfort of my family and friends. Once at Field Medical Service School, I hung around doing mediocre things and went about the massive base here and there. At the time, there were about 200 of us who were required and scheduled to go through field medical training during that spring session of 1996. FMSS was located on the grounds of Camp Del Mar inside the vast territory of Camp Pendleton in Oceanside, California. Camp Pendleton is the home to the 1st Marine Division Force out of the 3 expeditionary forces situated around the world. During that week and a half of free time, I didn't do much. I went into the town of Oceanside and roamed about, checking out comic book stores and hanging out at the local malls, walking about the Oceanside front city and checking out the townspeople and its markets and vendors. The town there is quite lovely to visit. Once everyone had checked into the command and school by our due date, we were then broken up into 4 platoons. While fast asleep in bed, quite early one morning of our start day, just like what had took place during boot camp in Great Lake, Illinois, months earlier, we were awakened by several large trash tin cans being flung and smashed against the walls and against the large metal 2-man lockers and floor by our soon-to-be platoon commanders, who were mainly made of Marine sergeants. We were then screamed at to muster up outside the barracks in the early darkness of the morning atop the cool company blacktop. "Get your fucking asses up and into formation out there on the blacktop," one sergeant had demanded. Most of us were barely awake. Most were still in our skivvies and tank tops. And then we were ordered to get on our stomach into push-up position while they readied themselves to divide us up into battalions and platoons. Some of us giggled and sneered at the rude command, but did it anyway. Some of us thought it was sort of childish, but we still did it anyway. It was our initiation into the rigorous training that awaits us. Like at basic in Great Lake, Illinois, about 7 months earlier, I only listened for my name to be called while they went about assigning our designated platoon. I was then assigned to the 4th platoon. Once we were divided and teamed up, we were then allowed to go back into our barracks and get dressed into our dungarees and boots. And after mustering up once again, we were dismissed for half an hour or so to go get morning chow at the mess hall several hundred feet away from our living quarters and across the large blacktop. Once everyone returned from chow and with their stomach filled with eggs, bacon, and toasted bread, we were then ordered to get into our push-up position once again, and then ordered to line into formation. And in a single file line of 200, we marched to the supply warehouse and issued our marine gears and supply. This morning routine is almost identical to that of basic training when we were issued Navy supplies and clothing then. Only difference was that we were issued camouflage fatigues and combat boots and U.S. Marine gears instead of Navy gears. Just like basic training during boot camp less than a year ago for me at Great Lake, we were issued uniform, gears, and various supply that would last us for the next few months. We receive a large jungle green sea bag once again, 4 sets of green jungle camouflage uniform, a pair of black jungle boot, a pair of black combat boot, 3 sets of greenish-brown physical training gear, several pair of black socks, and 2 green camouflage cover. And besides the uniform, we were also issued several weapons. We were issued and assigned a M16 assault rifle, which weighed about 12 pounds, and a .9mm silver hand pistol. FMSS lasted several long, rigorous weeks, where we learn about emergency field techniques and procedure, what to do in a combat zone, how to categorize the various wounded, whom to treat and in what order to treat them, how to keep them safe from a biological and chemical and radiation warfare, if one should arise, how to dig trenches and how to camp out in the field, and much more about warfare and combat scenarios. We spent several weeks in the field, humping up and down hills and valley sides, playing various war games, days in and days out, and only nursing our wound war body with meals ready to eat, MRE, to keep our body replenished and active. As part of our training and preparation, we would run every day, miles and miles on end at times. We did beach runs, beach crawl, and ran up and down hills and valley. We had a steady daily routine: wake up and ready for morning muster and assembly, clean up and line up for chow, march to classes and learn about chemical, biological, and nuclear warfare, what to do and how to and who to treat first in emergency and such related matter, and then off to physical training throughout the day before being dismissed for the rest of the afternoon, only to wake up for another dose of hectic reality the next day and the next day and the next day. It was our daily, weekly routine. Weekends were given to us to do as we pleased, as long as it was within regulatory limit. And if you didn't have to stand watch and duties, you were free to do whatever you want. We had PT, physical training, every day during and after class while we ran miles and miles on end. And what kept us motivated was the constant singing and chanting we did while we ran up and down hills and valley. We sang military songs and cadences together, where we dogged on and made fun of other military services and on each other. One of the good things about being in the Marine base is all the chow that we wanted to eat. There were no set limit or number of times we were allowed to eat during our mealtime. It was pretty much all you can eat. Most of us, one serving was quite enough because of all the physical activity we had to endure on a daily basis. There just wasn't enough room for any more bullshit for our bodies to take. For breakfast, we get whatever we want upon request. If you want your omelet filled with vegetable or meat, that's what you'll get. Marines were so courteous when it comes to respect and serving a higher ranking personnel. And if you're a combat medical personnel, a combat corpsman, that you had it pretty much made then. They know that medics are the one who will save them when they are wounded or shell-shocked during combat. The Marines called us Devil Doc because just like them, we stand side by side amongst them during a war, combat zone, facing down the same enemy with much less artillery at our disposal, of course. Whereas a medic, you don't have much small arms to defend oneself. Like Marines who are trained to fight, defend, and kill, that was their main objective: kill or be killed. When a Marine will carry a .9mm sidearm, a blade, grenade, M16 assault rifle, or some other large guns, on the other hand, the Devil Dog, us medical personnel, only carries a 9mm sidearm and his bag of narcotic, adrenalines, morphine, atropine, pain-killing drugs, and various medical and emergency supply ranging from cravats, gauzes, band-aids, tourniquet, needles, syringes, from various life-saving liquid to artificial inhalers and catheters, just in case some sort of a scenario should arise. We were the lifeline to these tough, brainwashed, crazy, mechanical, physically trained Marines. Throughout the training, the field medic candidates had to complete 4 humps while at FMSS, where we march about 40 to 60 pounds of gear on our backs for miles on end. First, we humped the 4-mile around Camp Delmar. It turned out to be about a 6-mile hump because we had to walk in circles to allow everyone to catch up. No one falls behind. During the 6-mile hump, we had to trudge it out in the cold Pacific Ocean, on and in the beach of Camp Delmar. The hump turned out to be about a 10-mile struggle. We had to walk and crawl in and through the salty water of the Pacific Ocean in Camp Delmar. And at times, cadets were collapsing and sucking in salt water. We crawled in the sand while the stinging wave crashes upon our pitiful faces and sore bodies, leaving salty residue of sea life and dead organism upon our faces, body, gears, and clothing. During this particular hump, I didn't bother wearing any socks. I got hardcore and stupid and decided to go barefoot in my Combat boot. It was idiotic on my part when we were done with the hump. The sole of my feet were worn out and torn up. The skin on my sole were charred and worn out, leaving blisters on my raw skin. I was in much pain. I probably deserved it for being ignorant and about the situation. I should have known and thought better then. As a result of my stupidity, I had to soak my feet in liquid medication for a while so that my new skin could regenerate sooner. I had to painfully soak my feet for a day or two. Luckily, it was the weekend, and we didn't really have to do much on the weekends. It was our personal free time to use as we pleased, as long as we didn't get into trouble with the law or any other mischief, and that's how we spent our weekend. I spent my weekend that week soaking my pride in the Epsom salt to help ease my pain and anguish that weekend. Several times I would call Mom in Long Beach to say hello and see how things were doing. I also called Benevolent as well and chit-chat with her about what was going on through FMSS. From then on, usually I spent my weekend riding or venturing around Oceanside with Shinshin. Usually, most of my free time was spent at the comic book store, ice cream parlor, or barbershop. Everywhere you look into the city of Oceanside, there were Marines and their family in the vast Ocean Views town. It was that sort of town where the majority of their patrons were military personnel. I liked it very much, though. It had a calm, relaxing atmosphere to it. People were friendly, the salty-smelling ocean breeze kept us cool, and everyone seemed to be approachable there, no matter the color or creed of the person. I didn't really meet much of the opposite sex there. I didn't bother trying to meet or hook up with anyone. I was mainly focused on finishing Field Medical Service School and go back to the Naval Medical Center of Balboa in San Diego. After all, that was my assigned duty station after all this shit was done with. Before going on our humps, our instructor in command would perform random checks of our gears and pack, making sure that we had everything that was required of us for each specific hump. I sometimes didn't pack everything that was told us to have. I didn't really need it, and luckily, they never checked my pack and gear. We did the 8-mile hump from Camp Del Mar to one of the mesa in Camp Pendleton. The long, strenuous walk turned out to be about 16 miles or so. We had to march in circle over and over again, allowing everyone to catch up, because we were a team of 200 plus cadets, nonetheless still a team of people who were striving for the same goal. That was our motivation to get through this together. With weary legs and aching backs, we carried on, singing cadences and cursing the day to keep us motivated to go on and get through this shit of a hump. After this hump, we reached our final destination. That's when we stayed in the field for about a week and had more hands-on emergency fields and combat training in the hot, humid fields of Camp Pendleton. While spent in the humid mesa and field, it was the grunt work now, getting down and dirty, getting down to business and getting really messy in the process. We had to play war games, treat simulated field emergency wounds, crawl through ditches, trenches, tunnels, and holes. And in the dark we would crawl and maneuver through and away from exploding mine, ran and swung from ropes across over small man-made ponds and pits, practiced throwing grenades and carrying each other over hillsides and through trapdoors and window whatnot. One of our obstacles that we had to conquer was called the Cardiac Hill. We had to run up and down Cardiac Hill, an 80-foot degree barren hill with very few shrubs and bushes to hang on to while we climb up to its peak with our bare hand and energetic stamina. Individually, as a group, we ran and climbed up and down its terrain, yelling and bitching like a pack of hyenas about the ordeal. It was one of the ways we motivated each other to complete this mission, talking shit about each other to no end during this competitive foolishness. Being pissed on and pissed at was one way to get motivated someone to do something that was painful and physically draining. At times, for the hardcore few who competed and time ourselves, we would compete and time ourselves, who would get to the top faster and such. Bets were usually decided with push-up and some form of physical activity. No money or currency was exchanged, just the pride of being the best was enough then. I wish Shinshin could have been here with us to compete in this task as well. I'm sure he would beat the shit out of everybody with his headstrong Herculean stamina. He was just that magnificent of an ideal physical specimen then. We also spent some time at the shooting range where we fired our .9mm pistol and M16 machine gun at various targets, aiming at the bullseye that was atop a poster of a person on the wooden board. It's funny, I couldn't hit the side of a barn to save my life when it comes to shooting guns. I didn't really aim at the target or anything. I just wanted to unload my rounds and get on with the training. I didn't really care if I get the sharpshooter ribbon or not. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I wasn't into guns. The sidearm pistol had more of a kick than the M16 assault rifle because we can't put the pistol against our shoulder for support like the assault rifle. When shooting the M16 rifle, I like to set its gauge setting to spread where rapid fire is unleashed into our surroundings. Besides shooting the guns, we have to clean and take care of them by dismantling and reassembling them in a timely fashion. We sometimes race and time ourselves to see how fast we can take the guns apart and put them back together. And for several and the few, the proud, we blindfolded ourselves for this task. We learned much from the week in the field, pushing our bodies to the limits and getting more out of it as possible. We ate our MRE military ration, using water to mix with chemical to warm up our meals. We were instructed on how to dig trenches and help each other out if need be. The main goal was teamwork, everyone helping everyone, leaving no man behind. That was our credo. It was much the same with the basic training credo and motto at Great Lakes, Illinois then. We were amongst equal, with a hierarchy of ranks and such, but nevertheless we were all equals. While going through this field training, I witnessed the teamwork, the camaraderie, the effort that we all put into getting everyone to succeed together. It was a blessed and learned event in my life. It was like basic at Great Lakes all over again, just like the time I spent with Hassan and Shinshin then. Here are some examples of this team ethic mentality. There was an incident that occurred there at FMSS when a female hospital corpsman and a classmate of mine, who was not much taller than me, developed shin splint during one of our longer humps, of which she refused to get into the trailing truck, whose duty was to pick up individuals who are unable to complete the hump and task. For she knew that if she would get in that truck, she would get set back to the next waiting class. So she pushed on, damaging more of herself for the cause, and we all praised her for it. Some of us helped carry her on. With her limp body and arms upon each of our shoulders, we walked and walked until the hump was complete. It was a moment of remembrance. It goes to show that teamwork that we all endured during our physical and mental training then. Another incident involved an elder dental technician who was a very petite woman from the Philippines. Her pack was about the same size as her, and her tiny leg could not keep up with the rest of us, so we had to walk in circle for her to keep up. So a much larger male corpsman decided to carry her on his back as though she was just another pack on him. That's the sort of relationship I'm talking about. We were like a family during this time, brothers and sisters of sort. It was for the team that we finished our designated mission and task during the rigorous, chaotic time in our lives then. The main goal for all of us then was getting through this mission. Several weeks later, we did the 12-mile hump, pretty much the same way as the previous hump, but we had to climb more hills and more bluffs. We walked through strawberry fields and patches, and when need be, we stopped for short rests and breaks. Most of us peed on ourselves on the side of the road or behind bushes as we walked in circles and such, waiting for everyone to catch up. Some of us even peed on ourselves while we walked about. Usually, it'll dry by the end of the walk. The 12-mile hump turned out to be about a 20-mile hump that was worthy of the back-breaking, agonizing pain and suffering for most of us who had to endure this last hump for us to graduate. And for most, we all did it. We all probably finished together, finished as a team and as a family. During the humps, we soaked ourselves in our own sweat and tears. Drenched in our stench, we carried on, pushing and pushing our numbed, limp body to reach our destination. Once our goal was reached, we had little time to rest and relax. We set up camp and began the journey all over again, with more rigorous training and simulations. We spent another week or two in the field, more in depth. We played war games, broken up in teams of 6 or less, where we had to crawl in the pitch dark through the bushes, brushes, mine terrains, and puddles under barrel wire, wire, through sound bomb fields, and under parade of flash grenades to reveal a location. During our combat scenario, of course, I was made the lead point several times to guide my team through our trials in the dark. And we crawled through bushes and jumped over trees in the dark and staged field emergency, where flash grenades were thrown in our faces, and we had to drag dead body through mine terrains and grassy field to finish our tasks and missions then. We also went through the gas chamber once again, just like the one that at Basic, but more painful gas was involved here, where much of the gas was released into the confined concrete building, and we had to don our gas mask and various breathing apparatus to prevent the gas from going to our lungs and eye. Just like previous during boot camp at Great Lakes, we also had to take off our masks and inhale the gas and recite certain command and orders to be able to complete the demonstration to be able to get out of the rancid gas chamber. Unlike Shinshin, I didn't hang around the gas chamber messing around with the sergeant. I made sure to get through my question and trial on the first try and get out of there quickly. During War Games trial, we were given dud rounds to use to shoot at each other. Mind you, these dud rounds leaves bruises and welts that were hurt for days on end if shoot against the body parts. We were instructed not to shoot each other in the face, in the head, or in the eye, or in the groin area. It may lead to extreme pain, maybe even death. During the day, we would split up into groups of 2, 3s and 4, and then instructed to hide ourselves until ordered to start the war game at sundown. So throughout the day, we would usually find a nice bush or shrub to hide in and under and to keep cool from the scorching, relentless sun. Then during midday, some of us would sleep while the others stood watch over everyone's safety and security. We took turns doing this throughout the day, before dusk was upon us. And we got some needed rest from our daily of heinous routine out there in the humid desert field of Camp Pendleton, Oceanside, California. While hidden from our enemy, we spoke very lightly, making sure not to reveal our whereabouts and location. I sometimes spaced out while listening to my surroundings, constantly with thoughts of Shinshin and wondering what he was up to and what he was doing while they're at Bud's, several hours away. At times I could hear the slithering sounds of various snakes, echoing of rattlesnake tails, rattling ring slightly in my ear. The soft breeze wrestled with the bushes and brushes, and footstep of roadrunner running about while looking for its prey out there. If you took the time and really listened to your surrounding, a new world can be heard and imagined. Then at dusk, while the sun was slowly settling and cooling off, we would light up the night sky with gunfire from our M16 rifle, and we would throw dud grenades and flash bomb at one another blindly, hoping that we would hit our target. We had a blast playing war games, and often we would have bruises and welts to show for it. It was our sign and identification of engaged involvements, and it was in the name of preparation and readiness for a real and horrific war that may one day come to pass. A preparation of readiness. During one of our hideouts in the bushes and brushes whatnot, I was teamed up with one other person, who was of Filipino descent. He was much older and a few rank higher than me. He approached me and asked me for a favor. I was asked and offered some form of monetary compensation to sponsor and bring someone over from the Philippines for him. He was a first-class petty officer then who had a strong Tagalog accent. He asked me if I was willing to marry his sister, who worked as a trained nurse and who currently resides in the Philippines, and would like to come to the States to live and work. He told me that she was smart, educated, pretty, single, and such. While he was telling me all this about his sister and his plan for me and her, about where I would live and how much they would give me, I thought to myself, this guy could be setting me up or something. I questioned his intention quietly, and in my thoughts and suspicion, I listened on and allowed him to speak his mind. And thoughts come to mind that perhaps that he was NIS, Naval Investigator Services, or something like that, and he could be setting me up. I was thinking to myself then, I wish Shinshin was here. He would know what to say and what to do about it. So I did my best. I told him that specifically that I wasn't interested. And after a few more denials on my part, he let me be for the rest of the day. I guess I passed in that unwarranted trust then. And it seemed strange, though, that he would ask me about this sort of thing while we were at field camp, out in the field, and during our training and of war games trials. I'm sure he was NIS of sort then, trying to catch those who are devious and monetary and bribe driven, I guess. Another time during field training, we had to don our chemical suit, which was made of heavy rubber. The chemical suit were about half an inch thick and kept the body insulated with extreme heat and warmth. The suit weighed about 20 pounds or so, not to mention the shit it does to your body while you're in it. Mind you, we had to don the suit on during midday when the sun was high and the temperature was scorching. We also donned rubber gloves and rubber fish boots with our gas masks on, and once we were totally suited, we then had to march up and down the mesa, sweating and hyperventilating throughout the ordeal as we carried on up and down. It was part of our training, and most of us took on the task without hesitation and few complaints. Now, during my walk up the mesa in the heavy rubber suit, and within about a minute, I was drenched in sweat. The shield on my mask was foggy, and my breathing was shallow and hoarsing. With my M16 rifle in my arms, I steadily made my way up the mesa, aching and pushing myself through this harsh task and ordeal. What helped me to keep going up the mesa was the thought of my beloved Shinshin. I asked myself then what he would do if he were in my shoes. He would never give up, so I had told myself then. So to keep in pace with Shinshin, I moved forward and toughed it out. Several times when no one was looking, I sneaked off my gas mask at one corner so that some fresh air could rush in to keep me cool and give me some comfort. I completed the task with few problems and was relieved when it was completed. And once I reached the top, I released my gas mask with a handful of sweat flooded out from my hand, head, face, and suit, allowing my head to cool and bringing fresh breath to my tainted, exhausted lungs once again. Once atop the mesa, we were allowed to relieve our body of the heavy rubber suit. But unlike usual, most of us wanted to be hardcore and continue wearing the suit for several more hours. I too was stupid enough to fall into this category, trying to prove to myself that I was hardcore and shitless. It's funny at times to think of one would do to prove that he or she was tough as anyone else, even if it means that it may shorten your lifespan in the process. During this combat and rigorous training, I was assigned the task of standing watch. I had the 0200 to 0600 watch real early in the morning and really cold at that time in the open mesa and the desert. So I walked up and down by myself at my assigned post while the rest slept, and the others who had the same watch as I did the same as me. Quietly and alertly they walked about on their own. We would use our flashlight to signal each other in the dark. Most of us had no idea what the flashes mean or we just didn't care. We were playing flash tags. We were all sort of playing flashlight wars at times, pointing at each other and such. Child's play. While we were on our watch, the rest of the platoon, personnel, instructor, and cadets slept cozily on the hard ground in their makeshift two-man canvas tent and such, some with their feet or combat boot protruding outside the shortened tent. Everyone slept with their guns, as we were taught to do so. "This is your bitch," our instructor would say. "Hold her, cherish her, clean her, and take care of her, as though it was worth your life." While everyone slept, it was peaceful at times, silenced with soft echoes of critters, accompanied with snoring and movement from those who slept nearby, as I silently and auspiciously walked up and down my designated area against the soft, cool breeze that enveloped me through my entire morning, as I watched over a group of 200 plus personnel. I giggle at the thought that their lives were my sole responsibility, and of the other assigned watch to cadet that cold morning. Then again, it was only training, and we didn't have much to worry about then. While on the watch duties and walking up and down my route, I thought about the mini girls that went and came into my life. Handjob Heather from basic, Beverly from Russian class, Kelly from middle school and high school, Suzanne, my first sexual experiences, Mary and Cantasut from Kunstmiller, Diem from the project in Denver, Jenny and Maggie from Goldrick Elementary, Tiffany, who was Andre's girlfriend from Eglone Elementary, Veronica and Cindy from 3rd grade at Montview Elementary, and Candy from Montview Elementary, my first girlfriend when I was 7 years old. how and what we would do and how I would feel if I were with them. Good thoughts that kept me warm inside while the cold outside consumed me entirely. My aching body chilled my surrounding with soft blowing winds and light dewdrop and mist upon the moist ground, leaves and tree. All I thought was those girls. They kept me warm. And of course I thought about my lonesome friend Shinshin. Shinshin Nagami, who was going through some horrendous shit with the seals at Bud's Den. He was training himself to be the shit, to be the best, to be the shit. I hope he was well. And thoughts of him, they're going through all those hardship kept me going as well. I wanted to be an equal to my beloved. So I strode on and pushed myself onward that early, brisk morning. I marched up and down with a smile, more like a smirk, just like that of Shinshin had all the time whenever I saw him. I still see him now in my thoughts, just the way he always is, with a crooked smirk. I hope he was well and happy going through what was going on up there in Coronado. I was wishing that the good Lord looked well after my good friend. That morning, I had the responsibility of waking up the platoon's master sergeant at 0530. So I went by his tent and shook it to wake him up. He was already awake. He had already heard my footstep coming a mile away. He jokingly stated I could have wakened a bunch of hibernating bears with that kind of footstep that I was taking and making toward his direction. "Damn, Doc, that's some noisy shit you're making there with your feet," he stated as he giggled about. "Yes, Master Sergeant, you're right. I suck at sneaking up to people, Master Sergeant," I humbly replied to his comedy intrusion, causing the Master Sergeant to laugh even louder at my ignorant stealth movement to get him up. On the day we were due to return to our command and base in Camp Delmar, we were awarded the opportunity to ride in several large USMC CH-53E Super Stallion choppers, which is a very large helicopter that is able to hold a lot of cargo. With our heavy, sweaty, and dirty gear, we had to march up the mesa with our pack and gear, and we laid quietly atop a grassy plain to wait for our ride to arrive and take us back to our barracks. I thought about the warm shower I would take then when I get back, and being able to put my feet up and rest for the rest of the weekend, and perhaps get some ass out in town. Maybe this time I'm gonna get laid. We waited for the whirling sound of the chopper, large blade and screaming echo. Out of nowhere, four large chopper hovered their way toward us. We saw it from a distance. I quickly pulled out my disposable store-bought Kodak camera and snapped several shots of the chopper flying in. Picture of it out there view of command instructor who instructed us to keep our heads down minutes earlier to prevent any accidents and possible mishap. It was stupid on my part, but I wanted to get a picture of the large chopper then. I was quite ignorant and stupid then. We had to wait until the battling chopper landed, and we had to walk in a certain pattern to board the chopper, or else we might get made mincemeat by the large propeller and blades. Each chopper loaded about 60 personnel or so. We boarded into the Super Stallion jumbo helicopter and waited as it hovered up to the vast open sky. The chopper flew over the desert and land and beachside and by sideway and byway. It was a really scary ride. We didn't have any seatbelt or anything to hold on to except our guns and gear and each other. So we held there snugly to one another for anchor and support so that we won't be thrown out of the copper. Almost in a gauged embrace, we held and loudly yelled at each other to keep our mind occupied with something else beside our fear of plunging out of the chopper to our death against the hard land, beaches, and eerie ocean below. I yelled and screamed while pointing at the vast dark ocean below to get the attention of my fellow combat medics. Still, always in my thought was Shinshin. I was talking to myself and giving thanks for Shinshin, for because of him, I got through all this shit I had just gone through. I hope he was doing well, and I hope he will get through his shit as well. In silence, I prayed for his safe and security. Besides being allowed to ride over on the very large helicopter, we also rode on several large tanks as well, that seemed to float atop the ocean surface several weeks earlier, while inside the dark tank, where the only thing visible inside is a flashing red light that constantly flickered off and on while the tank was in motion. And once the tank stopped and beach upon the ocean shore and beaches, we would then storm the beach with our gears and gun once the release hatch was open. It was all part of our training, storming the beaches, screaming and bitching at the top of our lungs, assembling into our small group, looking for enemy targets and making sure to cover each other's back in the sand and in the ocean water. We each knew our roles, who takes point, who takes lead, whose duty is to cover the left, the aft, and whose duty is to signal. It's an experience that I will never forget. It was good for me and everyone physically and mentally then. It was a training that breathed this sort of things in us. We were working like a well-oiled machine then. Mechanically, we were unison of each other's thought, and mentally, after all, had all become a team of combat corpsmen who have now earned the title of the Devil Doc. Several incidents occurred on the massive base of Camp Pendleton while I was going there through Field Medical Service School. In the first week of March of 1996, a Marine sergeant, who I would not name or give credit to, was stationed at the command there. Well, he went postal on his CO and another who tried to intervene. He had marched himself into his commanding officer's office, a Marine lieutenant colonel. They then had some discussion and argument about his performance and problem. The sergeant then shot the lieutenant colonel point blank, dead. He then shot and wounded another Colonel Marine who tried to intervene in about the office there, and then after a short chase by the Marine and military police, the gunman was caught and sentenced to death at first, but got life imprisonment instead after all was said and done through the court-martial. And he also got the possibility of parole as well. During the murder trial, the gunman sergeant said he was an alcoholic who had family and financial woes and problems, that he actually shot the colonel then, without intention. Also, he was found by a military doctor to be paranoid schizophrenic. That incident made the local and national news that evening, and for the next several days, his guilty verdict was deliberated until November of that year. While all that was going on, the entire massive base of Camp Pendleton was shut down. No one was allowed in or out of the command unless under special approval circumstances. We all had a stand down and several days until the issue was somewhat resolved until they found the gun and issue. Another incident occurred that also shut down the entire Marine base command at Camp Pendleton was that an assault rifle, M16A2 assault rifle was missing from the base locker and storage compartment. The entire base was searched thoroughly, but it was never found. None of us were allowed to leave base until several days later, until it was declared that the weapon has fallen missing from the face of the earth. I'm sure the dangerous weapon was stolen and sold to some street gangs and thugs, whatnot. There are many illegal military weapons in the hands of mafia, gangs, and thugs and terrorists out there in the street of Los Angeles and wherever, and many other big and small cities in the United States and all around the world. It's just how greedy works around those. It's just how our greedy world works. People stealing and dealing by illegal means to gain monetary and power advantages over those who are unable to defend themselves. Such what people would do to gain the upper hand. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 49. Be on the lookout for chapter 50, titled Extra Curricular Activity Outside of Training. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.